From the crossroads of the Ozarks, this is P.I.D. Radio. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and if you are brand new to this podcast, it's been around since March of 2005.
Yeah. Where you been?
2005.
Where you been?
Where you been? P.I.D. Radio stands for Peering into Darkness, which means that we look at the spiritual causation, causality behind the material results. What we see... Oh, there's a whole lot more there.
That is true. And there, boy, oh boy, are there shadows of the war in the spirit realm all over the headlines this week.
You know, every week we find something and lots of somethings because honestly, you and I could go for hours and hours. And we do. Off mic, you and I go for hours and hours.
That is
We
a
talk
fact.
about this
Yes.
all day long. Even the dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Get involved.
They were having a conversation this morning with the two neighbor dogs that come over.
They were disagreeing over the World Health Assembly resolutions.
Yeah. They
Neighbor
were
dogs thought it was fine.
Yeah, and Grace, boy, she was telling them in no uncertain terms.
This is dangerous.
Absolutely.
It is dangerous. I can't do that low bass.
Oh, man. Yeah, the actors who sing Caiaphas in Jesus Christ
my gosh,
Superstar.
the amazingly.
Yeah,
it's so good. Well.
I'd love to sing bass when I grow up someday.
You know, one day I might be able to sing bass. Actually, I almost can when I have a cold. I don't have a cold. I just still have allergies. I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah.
What is in the air?
Long growing season here in the Ozarks.
It really is.
I have really come to depend on the tablet form of Primatene in recent years. Just, but this mortal coil. Once we shuffle off and get the new glorified bodies, all this will be.
I'm going to tell you a story, those of you listening out there, about Derek and the need for Primatene. When we were in Rome, you were suffering. You remember you were really having a tough time, and you knew that you needed something, but you didn't have any. Didn't have any pills, didn't have any rescue inhaler, nothing, because you are prone to asthma. And we went to a pharmacy where the dear lady who ran the pharmacy spoke enough English, and I think we managed to do pantomime well enough that she figured it out, and it was not very expensive.
No, it wasn't. It was kind of eye-opening, but that is the experience of many people outside these United States, where the pharmaceuticals are priced much, much higher than they are in places like Mexico and Europe. And
I was surprised.
But yeah, did get a nice little inhaler.
Yes, and it was a rescue inhaler at the time. I don't know that you could get those without a prescription here in the States, but at the very least, it was probably a third of the cost.
Right. And that was very helpful. Didn't need it often, but needed it then. Don't use a rescue inhaler very often. And by rescue inhaler, again, we're talking over-the-counter stuff, not the stuff that you really need to get a prescription for. You can get Primatene Mist, which you used to buy over-the-counter. You can get it through Amazon now without a prescription. So again, over-the-counter strength is all I need. My asthma is not that bad. It's not like kids who really need to keep a rescue inhaler and epinephrine.
Well, when you were a child, it was worse.
It was worse when I was a kid, so I've grown out of a lot of that. But the fact is, it made the rest of the trip a lot easier. And actually had that inhaler for a couple of years. Probably expired before I finished using it up.
Probably wasn't the best thing to keep and use it that long, but it did. Yeah, it lasted a long time.
Yeah.
So yes, we have allergies.
But speaking of health, let's transition right into those international health regulations.
Nice segue.
Well, figured that it's the logical launch point.
If you haven't been paying attention, the World Health Assembly has been meeting in Geneva at the Palace of Nations.
The Palace of Nations.
The Palace of Nations. Boy, that sounds sort of Babel-ish.
It does, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Well, the World Health Assembly is a body that's been meeting for 77 years. They were established in 1948.
77.
No, 1947. No. 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the 77th.
Just before the creation of Israel.
I know. So many things happened in 47 and 48. CIA, Roswell, Israel.
Yeah.
World Health Assembly. Just United Nations.
Yeah. A lot of things in that immediate post-World War II era. I think there were a lot of people, globalists, who thought that with the recent conclusion of World War II and the fact that a lot of Europe had been bombed, a lot of Russia's industrial capacity, although Russia came out of it better than Europe did, certainly better than Germany did. But this was an opportunity to reshape the world order, and the United States emerged as the dominant power. Although the Soviet Union very quickly rose, and there was, the Cold War that lasted until the early 80s, which has come back again with a vengeance. Mm-hmm. But still, the United States emerged as the leading world power after World War II. We are, if the guys who wrote the book, and I forget what the title of the book is, but they've got that idea, the fourth turning. Mm-hmm.
There's a book called The Fourth Turning.
Okay, the world kind of operates in 80-year cycles, and that every 20 years you get a different aspect of that cycle, and after 80 years you get this global chaos and turmoil, and then suddenly a new, phoenix arises from the ashes. And it kind of makes sense if you look at the 1940s and World War II and the global destruction that took place. Now here we're in the 2020s, 80 years later, and similarly we're seeing global chaos. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk some about that here as far as the lawfare in the United States, how it probably will result in a massive transformation of global society. Call it the Great Reset, call it the international health regulations, whatever you want to call it. There appears to be something new developing, and because we're so close to the picture, we can't make out the forest for the trees.
No, so you and I try to find those trees and identify them as they become obvious. And one of those is the World Health Assembly's meeting right now, because most of those who have been watching this body and their deliberations have been rejoicing because the pandemic treaty was pushed off until at least next year or the year beyond that. So they're all saying, yay, we beat it. We managed to get our legislators to say we won't allow this, blah, blah, blah. That is sleight of hand. Right. That's where you were supposed to look. In the meantime, the 300 plus amendments to an existing treaty, if you want to call it that, the international health regulations that all of these nations that belong to the World Health Assembly, and in many ways the UN, have agreed to. These amendments are to be voted on today, and they only have to pass by one vote, whereas the treaty required 2/3 vote. Mm-hmm. 2/3 majority. This only requires a simple majority, so one vote will get them passed, and they automatically become part of a 2005 treaty, and not one legislator gets to object. Yeah. They don't have to ratify anything. It's a done deal.
Here in the United States, the Constitution requires foreign treaties to be approved by 2/3 of the U.S. Senate. Mm-hmm. But this is a treaty that we are already a signatory to.
Yes,
so it's just amending an existing treaty.
It's cheating.
It is.
And even more cheating is because the working group on these draft amendments was supposed to turn everything in to all those who had to vote, give them a chance to read through it by January of this year. They continued working until late last month. In April. This is now June 1st. In late April. That's when they turned in the additional ones that they'd changed. So the draft resolution, their final draft, if you want to put it that way, was turned in very late. They turned in their homework late. Mm-hmm. And so technically, if I were voting for a country, I would say, I'm sorry, you cheated. This vote cannot stand. We cannot vote until we've had a chance to read this. To which Pelosi would say, if she were sitting there, we can't know what's in these amendments until we pass it.
Exactly. Pass the amendments to find out what's in them.
Set it in stone so we can decide how to deal with this.
And this is really important because people, as you say, have been fixated on the pandemic treaty, which was at least kicked down the road another year or two. So people are saying, yay, it's a win. And not looking at the amendments to the international health regulations, which you've been talking about now. You brought it to
we've been talking about this for months and months.
Well, credit to you for finding it, though, because this is something that's really been underneath the radar. Mm-hmm. And most people aren't aware of how invasive this is. The World Health Organization claiming the right to be the governing body for anything that they declare to be a health emergency, which may or may not include infectious disease.
Well, one of the health and imagine Dr. Tedros in charge of the world. Unelected body of physicians and ancillary fields that would be in charge of whatever they deemed a pandemic. An infodemic is in those amendments.
Right. These amendments would essentially make the World Health Organization, again, depending on how closely national governments choose to follow them, because even though they're a signatory to the treaty, government might say, we're not going to give you control over our internet.
Well, I can guarantee if Trump is in office, he will say, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. End funding. After the pandemic, during the pandemic, he was ready to tell the World Health Organization to pound sand.
Because they were very pro-China.
Yes.
And they're still pro-China. They refuse, the World Health Assembly refuses to admit Taiwan, and yet they admitted Palestine.
Yeah. Good grief.
Yeah.
The fictitious state of Palestine.
I know, and they say, well, they don't have voting rights. But, they could do that with Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
It would just make China mad.
Yeah.
They don't really care if they make Israel mad. This is being voted on today, and one of the many, let me see if I can pull up this page here. One of the many,
and by the way, if you're looking for a program that we've done on this, you go back to our January 11th program of, no, I take it back, November 11th of last year.
Yeah, I thought it was
November
quite a while
11th.
ago.
Yeah, I made a mistake here in the typing in the date. I put 1 instead of 11. Anyway,
11/11.
Yeah, the 11/11/23 program.
Oh, was 11/11?
It was.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
11/11/11/11.
Yeah.
The technomedical dictatorship. I'll put a link in the notes to that program, but it basically explains why we are even bringing this up, why this is an issue, because these amendments. Oh, see, now I didn't mean to play the episode. I just wanted to look at the notes.
Oh, listen to that music, though. Whoa.
What we discussed, the expanded powers would broaden the definition of a health emergency to include things like carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, give the World Health Organization power to issue binding recommendations to member states on medical and or non-medical countermeasures, and this is a quote now, not only regarding persons, baggage, cargo, containers, conveyances, goods, and or postal parcels, to prevent or reduce the international spread of disease, controlling the mail, and avoid unnecessary interference with international traffic, as is currently the case, but also on, quoting now, the access and availability of health products, technologies, and know-how, including an allocation mechanism for their fair and equitable access. Hey, you wealthy Western European and North American nations, you need to share all of your stuff.
Quad, please.
Yeah, with the Southern Hemisphere. And oh yes, you need to clamp down on all the mis, dis, and malinformation that's being spread by your conspiracy theorist citizens.
Yes. In fact, it will be those items that will be part of the governing structure, the excuses for tightening control, also non-communicable diseases such as heart disease and diabetes. Those have been discussed. They were discussed day before yesterday. As you say, the climate. CO2
the idea
levels
in the
health
atmosphere.
is influenced by climate.
Right.
Al Gore addressed the assembly this morning via pre-recorded message.
Yeah.
There are a lot of non-pandemic issues. The antimicrobial resistant biological entities out there, such as, what am I trying to say? Staph that is resistant to apparently all
antibiotics.
Antibiotics, sorry, brain. This aging thing. But thank you very much. Yeah, the AMRs, as they're called, the antimicrobial resistant diseases. These are a pandemic as far as the World Health Assembly is concerned. And they are trying to push for the immediate approval of I think it's a phase 3 trial antibiotic. The African representatives were objecting. I watched a video and they were saying, excuse me, but it's because of antibiotics. that we have these AMRs.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Overuse of antibiotics has led to antibiotic resistant
Exactly.
microbes.
And so we need a bigger hammer to kill them. And they're resistant against the hammer. Get a nuke. We'll just nuke them from space.
It's the only way to be sure.
I do not like antibiotics. You and I don't take them unless it is an emergency. We absolutely have to, because within your own body, you can change the ability of that antibiotic to work. Mm-hmm. And you'll need a bigger hammer next time.
Right. There are times when it's necessary, like when I got that spider bite that got infected.
Yeah.
That was kind of necessary.
That you needed it.
But every time you're feeling just a little poorly, to suddenly start, downing the antibiotics, that's what has led to, it weeds out all of the vulnerable bacteria and just leaves the ones that are resistant. And they are the ones then that spread.
When I was growing up, it was commonplace for physicians to see you for a cold and give you an antibiotic. A cold is caused by a virus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless you have a secondary infection that is caused by a bacterium of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, my brain. The antibiotic is useless.
Right.
All it does is train the your body system to be resistant to. It selects for antibiotic resistant entities.
Right.
Bacteria.
Yeah.
Why does the word bacteria just not want to? I think the bacteria are in my head.
That's right.
Don't think of it.
Yeah.
Don't think of the word bacteria.
Forget that word.
Viruses are fine. Don't talk about that.
Talk about infodemics. So, yes, these amendments to the existing treaty, and I'm looking at the most recent news for that search term at X, formerly Twitter, and just within the last half hour or so comes news that the international health regulation amendments were agreed to by the working group, and tonight will be put forward by the World Health Assembly for approval.
Yep, I found that earlier as well.
Yep.
And I reposted it.
Yeah. And given that they are meeting in Geneva, Switzerland, which is probably 7 hours ahead of where we are right now here in the Central Time Zone, means that they are probably just a few hours away, as of this recording, of approving the international health regulations.
Today's their last day to meet, so today is it. And I know that many of the movers and shakers, those with lots of money and influence, want those amendments.
Yeah.
They'll regret it once that person... Okay, Tedros is in China's pocket, or at least appears to be. I will say that allegedly, by all appearances, my opinion is that he could be in China's pocket. But someone else might come along and be in someone else's pocket.
Deputy Director General for Health of Kenya just posted 1 minute ago, as we're recording this, that the world now has an amended international health regulations instrument.
They voted?
Somebody else posted 6 minutes ago that the amendments were agreed to by the working group, and tonight will be forwarded to the full assembly.
I know exactly. So they haven't been voted on by the assembly according to that.
Yes. So the working group has approved it. Okay. So no change here. This gentleman from Kenya is apparently jumping the gun.
Well, maybe English is not his first language.
Yeah, well, or it could be that he was just saying that, hey, the working group passed the amendments on. So anyway, they will be voted on this evening. But as we said back in November, 6 months ago, again, thanks to you following this kind of information closely, we were talking about the rise of this techno-medical dictatorship, which is what the World Health Organization aims to become.
You know, these amendments, you and I have read through them. They are densely worded. Mm-hmm. They are confusing.
Deliberately
so, so that lawyers can come along and decide exactly what is in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Pelosi was right when she said that 2,000 plus, page legislation that she said we have to pass it so we know what's in it. And that meant the lawyers come along after the fact
and sort it out.
And then courts decide what actually the law says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is, this really can't be downplayed. The World Health Organization, for all of its foibles during the pandemic, is demanding more power. And because this has been championed by the United States, by Germany, New Zealand also pushing for this. I saw yesterday that China was also in support of the IHR amendments, which, China, you can understand why. China is already a technocracy, a technocratic dictatorship. This is intended to hamstring personal liberties of people in the West. This is why China has been partnered with the World Economic Forum for more than 50 years. It's not that their end goals are the same, but the strategy, which is to cut off the Western middle class at the knees so that we can't keep insisting on personal liberty. That serves,
how dare we do that?
That serves the purpose of the globalists, and specifically the Chinese, who see the 21st century as the century of China, just like the 20th century was the American century. They see this as the Chinese century, and they're still looking for payback for what they call the century of shame, mid-19th through mid-20th centuries, when they were really abused and taken advantage of by Europe and North America.
Oh, yeah. Well, they talked about the infodemic, the idea of misleading or intentionally disinformation.
New term that allows them to justify taking control. One
of the stories that I shared this morning from SIDRAP, truthful yet misleading. Facebook posts drove COVID vaccine reluctance much more than outright lies did. Truthful yet misleading. Now, my question was, how can they be true
and yet misleading?
And yet mislead. It almost feels like, okay, Satan was truthful yet misleading.
Yeah, we saw that during the pandemic, where people were posting information that was factually true, posting peer-reviewed studies.
Exactly. That is truthful.
Right.
And yet, because people reacted to it by saying, I will not take a vaccine, it became misleading.
Right. Yeah. Okay, your information is true, but because it's not consistent with our larger truth, which is that you all must do what we tell you. Yeah. That is, sadly, that is an opinion, a sentiment shared by many in this world today. Okay, what you're saying may be true, but since we know that it's not part of our larger truth, we're willing to lie. Like, okay, you mentioned Al Gore earlier. Mr. Gore, do we not still have snow in the wintertime?
What?
Yeah, because I remember him saying we wouldn't have any by about 2015.
Well, I think he said by 2020 or so, we'd all be gone.
Right. And yet he's still living in his house with drawing enough power to, run a small city. But because it doesn't fit the larger truth, which is that we all must do as he says or we're all going to die, then, okay, forget these other facts. Okay, what you're saying may be true, but it doesn't fit the larger truth, which is that we need you to stop, living. That's what the World Health Organization is intending here. Okay, yes, you are showing peer-reviewed research, which appears to be correct, that things may not be as efficacious as we're telling you, but we want you to take it anyway.
But let me tell you, I read through this article, and it's very subjective. The study. It was in many ways anecdotal. It took a look at articles and then asked opinions of those that they polled. That's subjective. There's nothing really hard science in this. So actually, this article is a bit misleading.
I'm laughing now because I'm looking at another tweet, or I guess it's post now that it's X and not Twitter. That came through just 4 minutes ago. The working group of that was working on the international health regulation amendments, standing in front of a big sign, World Health Organization, and the phrase, "My health, my right."
Well, that's a little misleading.
It is. So, now, wait a minute. My health, does that mean I can refuse to take your jab? Oh, no. No, that's not what we mean. Your health, your right to do what we tell you to do, or else.
Yeah. One of the other stories and then we'll get on to other things, stories that I shared this morning is that there's a sort of a sideline company to AFP, which is a French news organization. It's called AFP Fact Check. And they call themselves the biggest fact checkers in the world. And you can subscribe to their service. And Facebook is, I guess, one of their clients. And they brag about their large fact checker assemblage of 20 people.
Okay.
We have 20 fact checkers. They started with one, but they now have 20 worldwide. So my question is this an algorithm or are these human beings? Either way, they're subjective because human beings design the algorithms.
Right.
And you never know when an algorithm is going to start to hallucinate and just decide that, hey, put glue on your pizza. Keep that cheese from sliding off.
And if you're mineral deficient, just eat some rocks.
You
can eat several small rocks a day to get minerals necessary for your good health.
Gloria agrees with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if this AFP fact check has been making what I feel are questionable claims about some stories that are out there. One being the First Lady of Nigeria, her speech that I showed you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's had to actually walk it back now.
Really?
Yeah, because the fact checkers came after her.
Oh, brother.
Yeah. So anyway, what I'm saying is that free speech is at risk. And if the World Health Assembly decides that free speech, my right, or whatever it is their new slogan.
My health, my right.
My health, my right. Okay, it's my right. Doesn't that mean that I get to put my arm out or choose not to?
Yeah. No, that's not what that means at all.
My health, my body, my right. If you're going to scream my body for other things, that I get to scream my body for this.
No, you have a right to health, but we tell you what is healthy for you.
That's it.
That's how
And we
that
tell you
goes.
what your rights are.
Exactly.
And they're yours. Here's the list of them.
Yeah. They're actually, they're privileges.
You have a right to choose left or right arm.
You have a right to remain silent or else.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
What else is going on in the world?
Well, there's plenty. And tell you what, we'll take a break, tell you about the new June-July specials in the store, and come back talking about, we need to touch on the Trump trial, not because it's Donald Trump, but because of the way the process was twisted and what that means for America. Also, Palestine, in quotes. The recognition by Spain, Ireland, and Norway, and perhaps Slovenia. What is all of that about? Maybe even bird flu.
That's coming to you.
All of that ahead on P.I.D. Radio. Giants, gods, dragons, they're all real. We may not see them with our natural eyes, but their handiwork is evident in what's happening in the world around us, the spiritual warfare taking place.
It is so true. It's obvious in Israel, but worldwide. Historically, we've seen this happen. And we want you to get excited about the Old Testament and the New, and the giants, gods, and dragons within it, because your kids need this information. So do you.
Yes. We're living in prophetic times. Help make sense of it with our special offer through July. Our book, Giants, Gods, and Dragons, which takes a fresh look at end times prophecy. My book's Bad Moon Rising, about the spiritual forces behind Islam. And Last Clash of the Titans, the overlap between what we were told is Greek mythology and the Bible. And our DVD, based on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. All of this, an $80 value for just $45 plus shipping and handling. Now through July, only at our online store, gilberthouse.org/store.
God's creation is full of mysteries. What were the giants in the scripture? Did dinosaurs roam the earth in the days of Noah? Are we alone in the universe? Join speakers Derek Gilbert, Rudy Landa, Michael Hoggart, Greg Patton, Mac Dominic, Josh Davis, and Micah Van Huss to explore the topics your Sunday school teacher didn't talk about at the Mysteries of the Bible Verse event in Cincinnati, Ohio, June 7th and 8th.
Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
That would make me Sharon, and we are delighted that you are out there listening. We like being inside your head. We've been in your head for almost 20 years. We're in our 20th year of doing this now. And we start one of our early shows was about H5N1.
Right, Dr. Henry Nyman.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that more in a minute, but we want to tell you about the Gilbert House store specials right now. I got to tell you, got to fess up, I closed the May special a little bit early. and here's my problem. when I grew up in Indiana, and I spent a lot of years living in Indianapolis, you heard 30 days in May over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, somehow, May has 30 days. And I thought yesterday was June 1st. And it was only later in the day that I realized that it was not June 1st. But by then, I had already closed out the specials. And that took a while to do because I didn't do it the way Derek did it. He's better at this. But what I'm saying is that we had one or two people who ordered yesterday. And I've sent emails out if you want to cancel your order, because right now going in and giving you the special price for just that is a real headache. It is. We'd have to change it just for that order and then take it out again really quick. But here's the thing. If you want to cancel your order, we are really happy to refund your money, and we regret my 30 days in May in my head thing. You can blame me for that. But the June-July special is a good one.
Yeah. And we would just have run the promo on that, so we don't need to revisit. But
it's a really good one, I think, especially since you, you get
a lot of prophetic information between those books. Giants, Gods, and Dragons, where we go into the entities behind the prophetic war, the spiritual war that we're in the middle of. But also Last Clash of the Titans, Bad Moon Rising, our take on Ezekiel 38 and 39, which is a little different than some others. We explain why we think that coincides with with Armageddon, that the Gog-Magog war ends at Armageddon.
Yep.
And then the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse DVD, which goes into the identity of those riders of the apocalypse and why we think they're literal entities and not just representative of various things.
Representating. I like that.
Yeah.
It's like synonym
and infodemic.
Oh, gosh.
So
infodemic.
Also, there's a new product in the store, the What Lies Beneath DVD, which is a 1-hour program featuring me and Dr. Aaron Judkins, who's written the book Guardians of Göbekli, on the spirits behind the site Göbekli Tepe, which archaeologists refer to as the world's oldest temple.
You know, I've read books on Göbekli Tepe. I've read a lot of academia.edu articles about it. Boy, I need more coffee. Also, I've watched a couple of documentaries on it, and honestly, there's not a whole lot known about it.
No, it is mysterious because this is Stone Age technology, basically. They didn't have pottery back in that time period.
Probably pre-flood.
Probably pre-flood, and they were able to build this massive site and others near it because it's not the only one in that part of Turkey. Karahan Tepe is nearby, maybe even older.
Was it Arslan Tepe?
No. That's different. That's an ancient Urukhian civilization. Kingdom of Nimrod.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
That was later taken over by the Hurrians. But
Tepe just means mound.
Yeah. There's a Tash Tepele, they call it, which are the stone hills in that area. There's like a dozen sites like Göbekli Tepe that have been found in southern Turkey. It's just they're so massive that they've only excavated a very small percentage of what's actually there. And the question is, why did our ancestors 10,000 years ago spend so much time and effort building these things? And Aaron is the only one, and Judd Burton as well, are the only two guys I know who have really taken a Christian look at Göbekli Tepe.
And so that's the difference.
The DVD that's available at our store now, and we're offering that at 20% off.
Yeah, so that's a good deal. You were talking to me yesterday about Göbekli, and you had, I don't know if you watched a documentary or you read an article about the possibility that those T pillars, they're big tall pillars that are shaped in T shapes.
Yeah,
they may have held up a ceiling.
There's a YouTube channel called Ancient Architects that I will occasionally watch, and they showed an artist's representation of what it probably looked like with roofs over it. We've only seen the excavated portion, and you see the T pillars standing there, and they look very impressive, but it's probable, scholars think, that those were actually holding up roofs.
Well, my question is that a conclusion drawn based only on the formation of the pillars and the fact that they are T-shaped, or were there indications on top of the pillars that seem to reveal the presence of a roof at one time?
I don't know, and that's one of the drawbacks of watching videos. I know a lot of people.
That's why I like to read academic papers.
Me too. I know a lot of people like watching videos because they're visual, and it's easier than sitting and slogging through an academic paper. But I'm with you. I would rather read the paper, and I can actually absorb the information more quickly. So, so God bless you when you send me videos. So here, watch this. What do you think? I'm probably not going to watch it because it's 15 minutes. I've got other things to do that I can do quicker than watching that 15-minute or 1 hour or 2 hour or 3 hour video.
I'm with you on that. And I don't click on links in Messenger or in Facebook unless I know exactly where that's leading me. Because there are spoofed accounts that will send you things and it looks like it's coming from a friend of yours. And if you know that friend never sends you anything.
Right. Yeah. And I want to be clear. I'm not trying to set myself up as some sort of, academic or some sort of genius or whatever. Or to put anybody down who prefers watching a video.
A lot of people prefer it.
We are all wired differently. All I'm saying is that my brain is wired in such a way that I would rather read the information because I can follow it better than if I'm watching a video. Because when I'm watching a video, if they're not getting to the point quickly enough, I get bored.
So do I.
And suddenly they've said something that was kind of important. And it's like, oh, now I got to go back and rewind it. So that's just me.
But
again, that's one of the reasons we set up the barn here through your generosity is so that we can do more video. And this summer we want to start actually making that happen.
And we'll try to get to the point around.
Yeah. And getting to the point sooner because it's an effective way of reaching a lot of people.
Yeah.
We know we're in the minority. And again, that's not to say that we are better or superior somehow because we can read academic papers.
We're the weirdos. That's what we're saying.
Yes. So anyway, just please understand if you send either of us a video link, either for security reasons or because, it's an hour and a half video, I can read the paper faster than that. I can
read the paper in 5 or 10 minutes.
And absorb the information more quickly. So anyway.
I can go back and I can reread it and in 5 or 10 minutes, and I can highlight it. Exactly.
Right, and then use that in future research. But the bottom line, getting back to your question is, I don't know why they said there was a roof on the place. If they were just saying, it looks like that would support a roof. I don't know. If there was a paper that I could, what, did they find log marks on top?
Well, that's what I wondered, if there were grooves on top or something that made it obvious.
I don't know. But it's a fascinating site that deserves more study, and especially from a Christian perspective, and that's what Guardians of Göbekli, Aaron Judkin's book, is about. It really digs into some of the spiritual forces that might have been behind the inspiration for that. We are your gods. Please build this thing for us because we need you to do this to worship. That may be. It may have been that the watchers who descended to Mount Hermon were the ones who inspired the Stone Age ancestors living in southern Turkey to build that site and the others near it. But there was also, these were not good guys. There was a skull veneration cult that was part of that site and others. There's one nearby at, I'm going to forget the name of it, but there was a skull building at this other location, not Karahan Tepe, but it's in that vicinity. It's not Çatalhöyük because that's a different site. But it starts with a C, I think. C with a circumflex below it. Anyway, they can tell based on the biological residue found on one of the structures there at that other site that the skulls being venerated were detached from their owners while the owners were still alive. So they were beheading people as part of this cult. So this was not a good place. I think we can agree that beheading people in service of the gods is not a good thing. And that appears to have been part of the culture that built Göbekli Tepe and the surrounding sacred precincts and used them for thousands of years.
This, I think, takes us to one of the questions that was asked in our on our app in the conversation area.
Okay.
In the Fellowship of the King area. And it was asking why the 7 churches of Revelation are all in Turkey. Yes.
And we keep promising to do this, and we're sometimes a little disorganized, but answering more questions that come in through the messaging section in our app. And that is a good question. The 7 churches of Revelation, why are they all in what is now modern Turkey? Western Turkey, to be precise.
Oh, yeah.
I think because Turkey is central to what happens in the last days. We look at Pergamum, and in Revelation 2, verse 13, Jesus says that's where Satan dwells, which is a reference to the great altar of Zeus. Zeus, the storm god, Jupiter to the Romans, Baal to the Canaanites. And that's consistent with Matthew 12, beginning of verse 22, where Jesus identified Baal, or Beelzebul, Baal the prince, with Satan. In the first century, apparently then, Satan was dwelling in Anatolia, according to Jesus in the Revelation, but he was also the chief god of the pantheon of the Greeks and the Romans. It's almost as though Baal, Satan, moved his power base west as political power and military power moved from the Mediterranean, moved from the Eastern Mediterranean to Greece and then to Rome. And then from Rome, further west, the Holy Roman Empire with the Germans, the French, the English, and then eventually to the United States, where our capital, United States Capitol, the place where Congress meets, is named for the Temple of Jupiter in Rome.
Well, I agree with that. And I think also, I was probably in high school when I noticed that all those churches were in Turkey. I actually looked them up on a map. Mm-hmm. And I asked the same question, why are these all in Turkey?
Yeah.
And at the time, Turkey was not militantly trying to rebuild the Ottoman Empire.
Right.
Erdogan, when he came to power, wanted to be the new Ataturk and wanted to actually reverse things. Ataturk wanted to westernize the country. I think Erdogan wants to re-Ottomanize the country,
right,
and he
right.
wants to be the new caliph or whatever you would call it.
And that's one reason the Turks are supportive of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was founded in the wake of the Ottoman Empire's dissolution in the 1920s. The Muslim Brotherhood's military wing is Hamas.
And it's not a coincidence that there was that marriage between the Muslim Brotherhood and Germany.
Right.
One fascinating thing for me, and I know many of you listening have also watched films or read books about the pagan fascination by Germany, that Hitler seemed to want to collect sacred artifacts of power. Mm-hmm. You know, the Indiana Jones and the Ark of the Covenant movie went into that, and many other subsequent movies have gone in that direction. Pergamum being in Berlin, in a way, transferred that authority to Germany.
Yeah.
And for Hitler to then want to bring in more artifacts, he was trying to find the spear of Longinus.
Right. Which is ostensibly the spear that was used by the Roman centurion who pierced Christ
was
in the
it?
side.
Probably not.
Right.
But the belief that it's the belief in an item, the power that you give that item that then gives power to the fallen realm.
Right.
And so he believed somehow he was going to, and he was trying to find the Holy Grail. I mean, he was trying to bring in all these things that he thought would give him more power to be the head of the world. In
a sense, it's like the last king of Babylon, the Chaldean Babylonian Empire, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, Nabonidus, who took the idols, which gave locality to the gods, the patron deities of all the cities of Babylonia, and brought them to Babylon, thinking that, okay, we've got Marduk here, but let's bring the idol of Sin from let's bring the idol of Shamash from the Sippur. What is the name of the? Yeah, I used to know. Anyway, bringing the idols of all of these other deities.
He was building a world hell assembly.
Yeah. There you go.
The spirit equivalent of Babylon, but why did he not understand how dangerous that was?
No, and it didn't work because Cyrus and the Medes and the Persians still overran Babylon. But getting back to Turkey and this idea of its importance in the end times, I mean, certainly John made that clear with his letters to, was it Ephesus? See if I can remember. ESP, TSPL, Ephesus, Smyrna, Philadelphia, Thyatira, Pergamon, but there's another S, Smyrna and Sardis, and Laodicea. Got them. All seven. Yay! So that clearly points to Turkey. But Ezekiel 38 and 39, the phrase uttermost parts of the north, is a strange phrase in Hebrew, Yarkate Tzafon, which only appears two other places. One is Psalm 42, where that is compared with Mount Zion. The phrase in that psalm is Yarkate Tzafon, Har Zion Yarkate Tzafon. It's almost a play on words. Mm-hmm. But it's also in Isaiah chapter 14. How art thou fallen from heaven, the sides of the north, heights of the north, uttermost north. This is a reference to Mount Tzafon, which was the mountain where Baal's palace was located. So this is essentially in Ezekiel 38 and 39 saying that Gomer with all his hordes, Beth Togarmah from the uttermost parts of the north with all his hordes, that is essentially the rallying point for this supernatural army that Gog, the Antichrist, leads against Israel. So that is why I think we've got Turkey playing such an outsized role in the end times. Gog is not Russia. The uttermost north does not point to the farthest northernmost point on the map when you're going north from Jerusalem. It points to that mountain that was sacred to Baal, i.e. Satan, in Ezekiel 38 and 39.
By the way, a bit of a left turn. You know how previously I'd said that the World Health Assembly had admitted Palestine but without voting? Mm-hmm. They're now seeking to expand Palestine's rights already. Within a matter of hours, they're trying to give them full membership.
How many nations have recognized Palestine as an independent state? Because I know that we've got, as of May of 2024, Palestine is recognized as because I thought, this is a new thing. Spain, Norway, Ireland recognizing Palestine as an independent state. No, 145 of the 193 member states of the UN recognize Palestine as an independent nation. Mm-hmm. Like, what? It doesn't have contiguous borders. When you look at a map of Israel and look at Area C, which is the area that is controlled fully by the Palestinian Authority, they don't touch each other. You got little areas, little pockets in Judea and Samaria. Mm-hmm. So how is that even a thing? How can you call that an independent nation? And you're going to say, the irony here, and this is the title of my Friday report for Skywatch TV, the 5 and 10, the irony of free Palestine. It's not free.
No.
First of all, that's the last thing that Hamas wants. They don't want a free Palestine. They want a theocracy ruled by an iron fist.
Right. They just want to erase Israel and replace Israel.
Yeah.
And then they'll just go out from there.
Yes. They hate Israel not because Jews are oppressing Arabs, but because Israel is occupying land that was once controlled by Muslims. And in the Muslim mind, this is not overstating this case, by the way. When you read Muslim history, you understand this is how they think. Once it was controlled by Muslims, it was part of the Muslim global...
Mine forever.
Yeah. Once Muslim, always Muslim. So they've got to take it back. That's what makes the irony of Spain recognizing Palestine so unbelievable. Spain was once Andalusia, and Muslims think Spain still belongs to them.
Sorry, Muslims. Judah existed before you did.
Yeah.
Israel was promised by Yahweh, the creator of all human beings, to the descendants of Isaac, Jacob, Abraham, and we're not talking about Ishmael here, to the descendants of Isaac and Jacob and all of that, to those tribes. It was promised to them, throne of David, for eternity, for all time.
Well, they say that the scriptures were changed by Jews and Christians.
Well, they conveniently well, frankly, they believe in some of them. Mm-hmm. They believe in Abraham.
Yeah, but they believe that Ishmael was the son of the promise. Yeah.
How can you believe in part of this? Part of it's okay, but part of it is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how cults get started.
It is. Yeah. Well, I think if Palestine is given voting rights, they ostensibly don't have full rights in the UN either, but give it time. Yeah.
It is mind-boggling. Mahmoud Abbas, the chairman of the Palestinian Authorities, the alleged president of Palestine, and please understand, whenever we use the phrase Palestine, the term, we're putting it in air quotes because it is not a real thing. Palestine has never been an independent country.
Can't you see the air quotes as we're doing them? Can't you hear it in our voices?
You can hear it.
Air quotes.
Yeah. It is, he's not allowed elections since 2005, which is when Israel pulled out of Gaza, by the way. Israel basically said, look, we're leaving you Arabs, take Gaza, do your own thing, just leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. And in fact, there were Israeli settlers in the Gaza Strip that had to be forcibly removed by the IDF. They didn't want to go.
So is he acting as an emir? Instead of a president, he's acting like he is a chieftain ruler?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, look, the world is pointing to Israel and saying, you're oppressing those poor Arabs. But the fact is, when Israel pulled out and said, okay, you govern your own authority, govern your own affairs. And Hamas then said, okay, you guys who are loyal to Abbas, the Fatah party, dead. And they made them dead. And that's how Hamas
Yeah, when they mean that, it's not figurative.
Right. And then that's why Abbas canceled elections that were supposed to be held and has not had elections for almost 20 years now because he knows Fatah would lose. So, free Palestine, not by any stretch of the imagination. The war there since October 7th has really changed perceptions of Israelis about the capability of living peacefully, coexisting with a Palestinian state. Nearly half of Israelis in 2013, nearly half of Israeli Jews, a majority of Israelis, because there are 2 million Arabs living in Israel, a majority of Israelis thought they could live peacefully side by side with a Palestinian state. That figure is now 19%, according to a study published last week. The Pew Research Center. And just before the war broke out, that figure was 32% of Israelis. Now it's down to 19%. 80% of Israelis now understand, Israeli Jews, let me rephrase that. More than 80% of Israeli Jews believe it is no longer possible to coexist peacefully with a Palestinian state. So when Joe Biden does what he did the other day, says the time has come for this war to end, most Israelis, especially Israeli Jews, who make up about 70% of the population of Israel, saying, no, the time is not for the war. Time is not yet for the war to end because Hamas still survives. So the U.S. has put forward a proposal that would involve a 6-week ceasefire, withdrawal of Israel's military, phase 2, return of the hostages, phase 3, reconstruction of Gaza. The Israelis won't go for this.
No, not at all.
There are a lot of Israelis who don't like Benjamin Netanyahu, but they are, for the most part, and the Pew Research study shows this, united by the realization that to live peacefully, they've got to crush Hamas. And frankly, just state right for the record now, there will never be an independent Palestine. Doesn't matter if 145 nations around the country, around the world have recognized this fictitious entity called Palestine. Israel's saying, it ain't never going to happen. Left, right, center, Israelis now, especially since October 7th, recognize this just can't happen because there will never be peace. And as you say, it's not just Israel, because once Israel is eliminated in the minds of Hamas and other hardline fundamentalist Muslims like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Islamic State, et cetera, then next Spain, then next Europe. In fact, there's already a Muslim invasion of Europe. People want to look at this as an example of colonizers. The Israelis are colonizers because they're rich and the poor neighbors, they must be the oppressed.
And the Muslims coming in aren't?
Muslims are the actual colonizers. The reason they hate Israel is that Israel is actually granting human rights to Jews and Christians.
Yes, Israel is standing in their way.
Right.
Israel is the one thing holding back all of that, running over all of the world, because you might say all of the assets are in place.
Yeah.
Spiritually speaking, the Lord has said, no, that restrainer is still here.
Yeah. But a day's coming when that restrainer will be removed. And we think, thankfully, the church will be gone from here. And I just want to say this. If I had heard me talking this way 25 years ago, shortly after we got married, I'd have thought, okay, what, head trauma? What? Why is he thinking this way? That you're sounding like your father, who still goes on about the communists. And I've realized Dad was right. it's because I've done some reading, research, and study on this. And guys who I used to think, like Avi Lipkin, who we love, and I realize he is right now.
Absolutely.
When I first heard Avi Lipkin, I was like, man, this is a hardcore Zionist. I don't know. I think we've got to be a little more tolerant and open-minded. That is what the world is pushing, because the God of this world is pushing that we need to be tolerant, we need to be open-minded, we need to be understanding. These poor people have been oppressed for so long. That's the only like AOC this past week saying the only reason Hamas attacked October 7th was because of the Abraham Accords.
What?
Like, are you serious?
Well, that's hilarious, because that's not what Hamas said.
No, they said it was the red heifers.
Yeah, that was their red herring
justification. But remember, in Islam, they've got two different ways that they are allowed to spin the truth. One is taqiyya, which means they can just flat out lie. And there's another term, which I forget, which is not telling the whole truth.
Truthful but misleading?
Truthful but misleading, yeah. And that's allowed in Islam as long as it's in service of spreading, worldwide global jihad. So I know if you're hearing us for the first time, you're thinking, boy, this guy is just a hardcore. I'm sorry. This is the result of years of reading and studying history.
We've been at this for a long, long time.
Yeah.
We did recorded a video of Avi Lipkin speaking to our group when we were in Israel. And I think that is an important talk to get out there as soon as possible. Avi really wanted us to record it because he felt like his message was so important for now.
I'm probably going to have to put that out through our app and on Rumble.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because
I know. It will get us canceled.
It would get us canceled on YouTube. I just have a feeling. Which
means you need to download our app. If you are listening to this on YouTube, great. We're glad. We consider YouTube a Mars Hill opportunity, but we're going to get kicked off eventually. And when that day happens, you can still, if you find our content useful, you can still access it at Rumble for now, but also through X and through our app. And the app is the best place to get it. It's absolutely free. And it supports not just us, helping us out, but supports Subsplash, a Christian company.
The more people use it, the more other ministries and a lot of ministry friends of ours are using Subsplash to power
just
their
about
content.
Everybody we know.
Right. Because it's reliable. It's a wonderful app. Again, we've got the messaging feature in there where you can connect with other believers, but it bypasses the gatekeepers of big tech. So we can put things there that we might not want to put on YouTube. Rumble, probably yes. I need to get our Rumble channel going. We've got an account there, and we had so much content on YouTube that they were trying to ingest that it just choked.
Seriously, we've been at this for a long time. So there's a lot of content. We would love to be everywhere, but honestly, it's just Derek and I.
Yeah.
The dogs won't help at all.
No.
They keep saying, we don't have thumbs, we can't do it.
Yeah.
And where's the snacks?
That's their excuse. So we are, we're trying to do this without taking on a lot of additional expense. So we have become the bottleneck as far as getting content.
We really are, and we apologize for that, but we're trying to be good stewards of the things that you have blessed us with.
Amen to that. Amen to that. A couple more quick topics I want to touch on. First is that while all of this was going on with the Trump trial, which of course we'll get to that in just a second and try to keep that short because that's been covered ad nauseum by the corporate media. While that was going on, the United States sort of quietly gave permission, along with Germany, to Ukraine to start using the long-range missiles. We've given them the HIMARS system to strike inside Russia, and apparently that occurred Friday night with HIMARS missiles being launched at Belgorod, which is on the Russian side of the border across from Kharkiv, where Russian forces have been advancing.
Did you see that Putin's nuclear redoubt palace caught fire?
No.
I posted that to X this morning. You haven't been on my X.
I haven't been trolling your X.
Yeah, I was wondering how that, but because the news outlets are saying Ukraine was behind it.
Well, the bottom line is that giving Ukraine permission to start using these longer range missiles to strike targets inside Russia, that is a major escalation of what's going on. This may result in Russia finally saying, okay, we've had enough. We're going to start hitting targets inside Poland and Lithuania and anybody else who starts getting in our way. In addition, NATO was requested by Volodymyr Zelensky to send troops. And Macron of France has said that, yes, we're putting together a coalition of the willing to send what they're calling trainers, just like the advisors the United States sent to South Vietnam in the 1960s.
Yeah.
This is just another incremental step to say, look, we didn't send it. We didn't mean for them to get involved in it. But look, the Russians are shooting at them. They have to defend themselves, don't they? This is going to lead to World War III.
We have never sent in a team of quote unquote advisors without sending someone there to guard them.
Right.
Because the advisors theoretically have no weapons.
Yeah.
They just have advice to give.
Right.
They have expertise.
This is word magic, which is essentially the way...
Truthful but misleading?
Truthful but misleading. Yeah. We're sending guys there, but no, they're not there to fight. Oh, but they have to defend themselves. Oh, gee, we feel terrible about it. Like Obama saying in 2013, no, we don't have boots on the ground in Syria. Really? Okay, so they're wearing sneakers then.
Yeah, or high heels.
Yeah, because which could be. It's
you can do some damage with a 5-inch stiletto. I got to tell you,
you can. So we're moving closer and closer to open conflict between Russia and NATO. And again, getting back to the idea of the 80-year fourth turning coming up, Russia has basically said, "Look, push us too far. We will use tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield." This could turn really ugly, and we pray for cooler heads to prevail. Why the Western world, why NATO can't say, look, stop with the testosterone test here. Just back down. Ukraine, for all intents and purposes, has lost. They've run out of men. They've run out of weapons. Stop where we are.
Let me just throw in one more story before we go. And tomorrow, by the way, on Gilbert House Fellowship, we will answer another question.
Oh, yes.
We're going to try to do 2 every weekend.
Have our Bibles been changed?
Yes, exactly. So look for that. But one of the stories this past week was that North Korea sent balloons into South Korea and had the balloons drop from the air, trash and feces.
Right.
That could easily have had chemical and or biological weapons in them. Anthrax, foot and mouth, cholera.
Pretty disgusting.
Was that a test to see if he could get away with it?
Pretty disgusting. Yeah, and then he did a massive missile test last night as we're recording this on Saturday morning.
I'll say again, Annie Jacobson's book about this nuclear endgame is North Korea getting involved and starting the whole shooting match. Yeah,
things are just crazy. And here in the United States, we like to think of ourselves as the land of the brave and the home of the free, land of the brave. Yeah, I have to sing it to remember which order the words go. Anyway, Donald Trump convicted
land of the free and the home of the brave.
Yeah. Again, singing through the song in my head to remember the words.
Home of the...
That's it. Yes. Donald Trump convicted on 34 felony counts. Even liberal legal analysts on CNN and MSNBC were looking at this and saying, I can't believe they got away with this. Because DA Alvin Bragg, if you've been watching just the corporate news on the Trump trial and thinking that this was somehow a...
That's the post that I shared earlier that I said was such a good analysis.
Right, yeah. And that's
Intelligencer.
The Intelligencer, and that's the CNN legal analyst who wrote that. I shared that yesterday as well. The district attorney filed charges against President Trump based on a misdemeanor. And the misdemeanor was falsification of business records. Now, the problem with that is that the misdemeanor had gone beyond the statute of limitations, which means it's now a dead charge. You can't file against it, file charges based on it because the statute of limitations has expired. Well, apparently they took the paddles and they shocked it back to life. Clear! By claiming,
look, it's a felony.
Yeah, by claiming that it was used to cover up an underlying crime. But he never proved to the jury, never even tried to prove what crime it was. In fact, he floated 4 possible crimes that the misdemeanor charge might have been used.
You can't do that. You actually have to charge them with it.
I know. You can't, but he did, and the judge allowed it.
Well, there are some questions about the judge.
There are. His daughter is a Democrat activist. He's the.
And I think he contributed.
He has contributed. He's contributed to. Yes, it's. There's anyone looking in from outside, looking at this, at how compromised the judge was, and looking at the rulings that he made. Legal analysts who are fair. I like to read the analysis of Jonathan Turley, who is a liberal, Chicago Democrat from years back. But he's looking at this. He's a constitutionalist. He's a law professor at George Washington University. And he blogs quite a bit. He's carried in the New York Post, in Politico, in The Hill, and a number of other places. He's just aghast. But even the CNN legal analyst saying, yeah, they got Trump, but they twisted the law out of shape to do it. They resurrected the misdemeanor, used it to trump up 34 felony counts. Mm-hmm. Based on something that wasn't illegal. You're basically saying, look, we'll pay you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. That was the payment to Stormy Daniels. That's not illegal. The misdemeanor, again, had expired. But by claiming that it was covering up some crime, it might be fraud, election fraud. It might be this other. Judge Merchan allowed 3 potential crimes and then said in the jury instructions that the jury didn't need to agree on which crime had been covered up by the misdemeanor.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. So the bottom line is this. It's not, and I know that there are liberals who are doing a victory lap because Orange Man bad, but if you can't love Donald Trump or hate him, and look, Donald Trump is a deeply flawed human being. So if you don't like Donald Trump, I get it. That's fine.
Look, if Biden were the
on the receiving end of this, yes.
You and I would be upset.
We would be saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. And believe me, we carry no water for Joe Biden or his family.
None whatsoever.
But what has happened here is this. They have now established a precedent that any former president, as soon as he leaves office, is going to be subject to this kind of lawfare. The minute that Joe Biden leaves office, whether it's in 25 or 29 or somewhere in between, you'd better believe there are a long list of attorneys general and district attorneys who want to make their name in history and ready to file charges against Joe Biden.
I am picturing the retconning of the entire Biden administration and so many documents that are being redacted and just disappearing.
Yeah, no doubt. Or Biden just immediately granting himself blanket immunity from everything before he leaves office. But this is not a good thing for the United States. This is not a good thing for America. Yeah, I know there are a lot of conservatives out there saying, boy, we can't wait until we can get even and we can file suit and we can charge Joe Biden.
No, sorry, that's not right either.
No, it isn't. And go back 2,000 years in history. This is exactly what led Julius Caesar to bring his legions across the Rubicon. Mm-hmm. His term as consul, and while you served as consul in ancient Rome, you were immune from prosecution. But as soon as you were no longer in office, you could be sued. And the opposition, led by Cato, and they had gotten Pompey the Great on their side, said, we've got 10 years of things we can charge Julius for. He's getting too popular. We need to basically put him in prison. And Julius tried to get them to allow him to run for proconsul. They said, nope, you're going to have to come back to Rome and live here for a few months and then run. And of course, that would have meant they would have basically charged him with crimes.
Okay, I'll come back.
And he did, but at the head of an army.
Yes.
This is a lesson for we Americans. This is what the Democrats, the never-Trumpers, have put onto the United States. I predict this is going to be viewed by historians as a key turning point in the dissolution of the United States. Mm-hmm. This country is not going to survive in its current form to the end of this century, if we're still here by then, if the Lord tarries.
Within the next 5 years. And I'll just end with this story. Eric Schmidt has predicted. Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, in an interview a few days ago, admitted, he said right out, that because of algorithms and large language model agents, and that's in air quotes because it's what they call these algorithms, these AIs, they are starting to talk to one another. Mm-hmm. And as they talk to one another, they will start to plan together. And he thinks that their plan will merge into one big agreement, like the World Hell Assembly. But they might fight with one another. Mm-hmm. Because if they are indeed acting as locales for spirit entities, then those spirits don't get along very well. for the most part. They have not historically gotten along. That's why you have the Prince of Greece taking out the Prince of Persia.
Mm-hmm.
They're at war with one another.
Yeah.
And the Lord allows that war for the time being, and he uses it for his ends. Eric Schmidt said we've got 5 years. We've got 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not even that long.
Well, prophetically speaking, I think that probably is about it. Am I setting a date? No, I'm just saying, looking at what's going on in the world, unless Jesus somehow gives us a grace period that we don't anticipate, it's all on like Donkey Kong.
Yeah. Yep. Well, 2025, a lot of clues pointing to that year as being very, very significant.
2029, another prophetic year. So, yeah, rejoice though. We're told, don't panic over this. If again, you're new to P.I.D. radio, we look at the spiritual things behind the theopolitics behind the geopolitics.
Mm-hmm.
But we like to end with rejoice. Look up.
Yeah.
Our redemption is drawing near.
Amen.
Jesus is coming back.
Amen to that. Join us tomorrow for the Gilbert House Fellowship Bible Study tomorrow night, talking with Corby Shuey on A View from the Bunker. For Valor is his book. It's basically a call to the church to stand for the faith now more than ever, because we are living in prophetically significant times.
That is an important call to follow and to answer.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Derek and I are going to be in Cincinnati area.
Oh, yes.
This next weekend, which means there will be no PID radio next Saturday and no Gilbert House Fellowship next Sunday. We're also going to visit with my family while we're out there for a few days, because they're only an hour away from Cincinnati. So if you want to go, it's the Southwest Radio Church Conference.
Yes, the mysteries of the Bible verse, not just giants, but giants, secret societies, UFOs.
It's everything. It's in everything with a side of fries.
Everything that you weren't taught in Sunday school. So it will be a wonderful gathering. Pastor Mike Hoggard, we pray, is feeling well. We saw
ill.
Yeah. So apparently COVID going through his church there in
Mike, we're
Festus,
praying
Missouri.
for you.
Amen. Rudy Landa, the filmmaker behind Giants, Angels and Giants.
Him.
Yeah. So some great stuff. Micah Van Huss, who was a recent guest on A View from the Bunker, and others. You can find information at our website, gilberthouse.org. Look in the right-hand column there for the events. Go to our app, go to the calendar section there, or go to SWRC, Southwest Radio Church, swrc.com. This will not be streamed on video.
And I don't think it's going to be recorded to be a DVD. So this is your only chance.
Right. So go to, it'll be at the Marriott Cincinnati Airport in Hebron, Kentucky. Hebron, Kentucky. Yeah,
which is right across the river.
Yeah.
It's not technically in Ohio or Cincinnati. It's in Kentucky, which I like better.
Yeah. So we'll pray that we see you there. And until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and for Grace and Glory, who are inside the house redecorating. Bye-bye, everybody.
P.I.D. Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @P.I.D. Radio, or the P.I.D. Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.